Greetings. I'd been planning to do some videos on other topics, namely California and the history of its various parochialist and secessionist movements, coupled with a video outlining the culture and history of New England. However, things got away from me, and I was too caught up with school to work on these videos. Not as though anyone were clamoring to see them, but I just felt I'd explain myself. The date, as of recording the audio of this video, is February the 18th, 2018, and I will say that recently there has been a mass shooting at a high school in Parkland, Florida, to which the focus of numerous major media outlets has been drawn. Now, as someone enrolled in a high school myself, this does rouse a very real fear in me. It is quite terrifying knowing that people my age were gunned down on an otherwise ordinary day at school. It really reassures me of my own mortality. But what certainly isn't helping ease my fears is the media circus which follows events such as these. Predictably, from the left, there are calls for greater restriction on the ownership of firearms. I've even seen friends and acquaintances of mine on social media engaged in activism, demonstrations related to this event, and there was even a piece published in the New York Times wherein the author argued that the Second Amendment should be repealed. I don't really have much to say on this issue, except that I emphatically disagree. The idea that America's gun culture is to blame is really just hackneyed at this point, I think. I feel the ideas or proposals of banning assault rifles or repealing the Second Amendment, which, to be fair, I don't feel too many people are actually arguing to repeal the Second Amendment. But I feel these things are either impractical or just diametrically opposed to the spirit of Americanism and really shake the foundations of what makes our country free. The freedom of our nation is predicated on the ability of the citizenry to rise up against the government should it become tyrannical. And I feel the left believes that they have outgrown this, that they have outgrown the tradition and the mythos of the founders, and that their liberty is simply secure until the end of time, and that it really doesn't require any safeguarding, or at least not any safeguarding that involves personal ownership of assault rifles. I don't think they see violent uprising or the threat of violent uprising as a way for we the people to ensure that our government has its focus on protecting our civil liberties. And I think it's interesting they don't really see this, given their reaction to our current president, which has been overwhelmingly negative. I think about the people who I know who are protesting, and they're the sort of people who, when you'd ask them, they would tell you straight-faced that they believe the president is completely out of his mind. But if you believe that the president is crazy or just evil or working against the interests of the American people in general, I really can't think of a better reason than that for the ownership of an assault rifle or some sort of firearm. Because if you think that, we have a literal fascist in office or something, then I don't know what to tell you other than there should be some sort of armed uprising, logically, from that. If you honestly believe we have a fascist in office, then it only makes sense for there to be a violent overthrow. And it just seems like an inconsistency to me that they'll say that and then in the same breath say that there should be, bans on these types of guns, and this idea that it's really no longer necessary. And maybe you don't have the stones to go out and challenge the government like that, if that's what you really believe. And that's understandable because you'd be taking on the American military, and that is very scary. But it still doesn't make sense that you would argue against others having the ability to do so, were this the case. But I think it's just incoherent, as so many political philosophies often are. And you just hear all this noise and sound and people supposedly having some sort of national discussion about things when it's really just everyone talking over everyone else. And I come away from it feeling isolated. I know I'm out here in the Northeast, really liberal stronghold. So I can understand that not very many people view things the way I view things, especially on this issue. But it still leaves me deeply disappointed in the state of our country as it is. And don't get me wrong, I understand that terror. I understand that fear that this could be you next very easily. I don't like that this is a reality that, some monster can just go and do this, but I think the alternative is worse, is even worse if you leave no recourse for people against the government. So those are my thoughts on this issue. I will try to get back to you with those other videos I promised earlier. It's currently February break, so I might actually have a chance to make them. Other than that, stay safe, and goodbye.